ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm when I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamalski. We are the general. We sit up on the rhythm and open the mic incredible. And me right palm rhythm and move with the rhythm and sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel broken, follow me. Cool, you know you love her for your life. We jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it right. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we chop a mic, they call we give it a general. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm and I move with the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamalski.
Yes, yes, yes. What is up, everybody? Joshua Casper back at you with another live stream. We are broadcasting everywhere today. We're broadcasting on the Plugin Boutique channel, the Beatport Twitch channel, KSHMR's Facebook, YouTube, just everywhere, okay? We're very, very excited. Obviously, KSHMR is the guest. We're going to be talking about not only him, his music, but the new plugin he just released with Excite Audio. It's an absolute game changer, and I'm excited to see what he has to say about it. But just a heads up, we are doing a giveaway on the stream. In fact, a bunch of giveaways, including some bundles with KSHMR's new plugin, Excite Audio plugins, Plugin Boutique Stereo Savage, which just came out last week, and even Auto-Tune Pro. So if you're looking to get involved with that giveaway, all you need to do is pop over to the Plugin Boutique YouTube channel and be active in the chat, and we're going to choose some people at random, and I'll announce those winners at the end of the stream. Hope that all makes sense. Whether it did or not, I'm really excited because I'm going to bring on my guest right now, Mr. KSHMR himself. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm glad to be here, and I'm so happy we can make this happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you don't mind, can you just give us a sort of, elevator pitch about who you are and what you do?
Sure. This is my favorite thing to do is pitch myself. So I am a music producer. I started out in hip-hop music. I'm from the Bay Area, and growing up, the only thing that you really could do was hip-hop music. And then I discovered pop music and working with singers, and I found this girl, Dev, and together me and my friend David, with our group, The Cataracts, developed Dev. And then it all sort of culminated with this song, Like a G6, that we all made together with the Far East Movement. And that turned out to be a really big hit and opened a lot of doors for us. And then I kind of proceeded to be a pop producer for a number of years, which for a while I loved, but then I fell out of love with it. And I started KSHMR, and that's kind of where I'm at now. And KSHMR is dance music, and it's been a way for me to just kind of unrestricted make the music that I want and that I find interesting. And it's just been a beautiful journey. And one of my biggest passions throughout all of this has just been, the science of production. And since I was young, I would collect sample packs. Back then, you used to have to get sent a CD in the mail, and you just have one CD of samples, and you would just use the hell out of it. And now we live in this world of like infinite samples, for better or worse. And it's been fun to make my contributions in the forms of the Sounds of Kashmir series, and also to plugins like the one that we're going to talk about today, KSHMR Chain.
Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. In terms of, before we move on to the plugin, which is obviously the focus of today's stream, what are some other songs that we might know that you produced? I know that sometimes producers don't get credited in the pop world, or they have been more recently, but a few years ago they weren't. Is there anything that we might know that you've produced?
Well, Like G6 was the biggest one. I did a single for Selena Gomez called Slow Down. I did on Enrique Iglesias' last album, which is Sex and Love. I did most of the English tracks on there, and I'm a Freak with Pitbull was like the big one. And I'm even in the music video, and that was fun. And let's see, I'm probably forgetting, because it's been a while now, but Dev, I worked really hard on Dev's project, who is a singer on Like a G6. And we had a song that got pretty big called In the Dark. And we made that in Costa Rica. That was a really fun experience. The record label paid us a bunch of money and spent most of it on drugs and partying, and a few good songs came out. And that was one of the good songs that did pretty well on the radio. There was a song with David Guetta called Sweat. We originally produced for Snoop Dogg. That became a pretty big remix, and from Guetta, and I don't know. There's probably more, and I did a couple songs on Robin Thicke's album, the Blurred Lines album.
Great album.
And yeah, and I don't know. It's been a while. It's been like 10 years ago. It feels like, since G6 came out, and then yeah, and then on the EDM side, if you're watching me, then you kind of probably know what my bigger songs were. But I had this song called Secrets with Tiesto. That was pretty big. And I guess my second biggest song would be like Wild Card or Karate or Power, actually, with Hardwell. Crazy enough, they're like singing that as like the national anthem at Dutch football games now. Power kind of became pretty big.
That's wild.
Yeah. That's a really fun one to play live. Like the whole crowd is Power. And even if you don't know the words, I mean, it's just like one word pretty much, Power. So everybody sings it. So it's pretty fun.
That's crazy cool. We already got a question coming in, and the question is, how did you come up with the name Kashmir? I'm saying it, Kashmir is the way to say it. Yeah.
So yeah, I have been asked this question a million times. The answer is really simple. So I'm a Kashmiri American. So Kashmir is this place that is a part of India or Pakistan, depending who you ask. It's a super beautiful land that way back in the day, philosophers, poets went and discovered and decided to spend their time there because it has these fields, and mountains of snow, and it's just a really paradisic place. And of course, with that came a lot of people who wanted to take over, right? And so there was a lot of different rulers over the years. And I don't want to get too political here, but we're Kashmiri pundits, and that means we're Hindu Kashmiris. And we kind of had a rough time, depending on who was ruling at the time. Eventually, we had to all leave, or most of us, and went to India. So my grandparents eventually came to, well, I don't want to say, when you say India, it sounds like they're two different things, and then it gets political, but they went to New Delhi, And then that's where my dad grew up, and then he came to America, and that's why I'm a Kashmiri American, right? Because I was born and raised in America, but it was impressed upon me throughout my childhood, Kashmir, and knowing my history, and it was very important to my grandpa, especially, that I sort of carried on. And he was really happy that I picked the name that I did. So it's a tribute to my heritage. Yeah.
That's super dope. In terms of, like Joshua Casper, for example, I just pulled out of a hat one day. So that's great to know that there's meaning behind your name.
Yeah.
So let's just get right into the bulk of it here. We're going to be talking about your brand new plugin that you released with Excite Audio. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is before we jump into some actual examples?
Yes, absolutely. So this was born out of the fact that I found myself in certain projects using the same chain, especially on a singer's voice, once I knew what the chain was that I liked. So I would copy and paste that chain a bunch of times, and if I thought, oh, maybe a different compressor or different settings or different auto-tune settings would have been better, I noticed there was this mental obstacle in my head that led me to not changing it because it'd be too much of a pain in the ass to go and change all these settings. And I thought it would be so great if the same way that you apply effects on a group, you could so easily apply them to each individual track. And I've worked on projects that have sometimes 50 vocals. There's lots of harmonies, lots of doubles and stacks. And so I was like, well, why can't this be possible? Why couldn't we make a chain creating plugin that it basically broadcasts the chain that you've made to all these different tracks? And it turned out to not be that easy, but we were able to get it done with some incredible ingenuity from the guys at Excite Audio and Plugin Boutique. So that is what led us here. It really solved a big problem for me, and I'm working on a hip-hop album now that's all Indian rappers. So I went out to India, recorded a bunch of rappers, and I'm left with so many vocals, and this thing has literally saved my life, because now when I'm starting a vocal project, instead of worrying about what the perfect chain is and doubting if it's the perfect chain, I just put the leader on one vocal if it's a single singer, and then for the rest of that singer or rapper's vocals, I put a follower, and later if I want to adjust it, I know it can only happen in one place, and the rest will get the identical chain. So I think once you find the right chain for vocal, it's pretty much going to be the same for every take if it was recorded in the same microphone by the same singer. And it just takes a big weight off of me when I'm using KSHMR Chain.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you to jump in and show us rather than tell us what we're checking out. So what I'm going to do is flip over to your desktop where we should have, I believe, Ableton. And I can say that you've shown me one or two of your projects, and there are literally mountains worth of vocal channels in them. So I can only imagine when you're dealing with that many vocal takes, how invaluable this plugin could be.
Yeah. Super duper invaluable. Yeah.
So for everybody who's just turned in, we're going to be checking out KSHMR Chain with Kashmir today. If you have any questions for him, pop over to the Plugin Boutique YouTube channel and at Plugin Boutique, and we'll get those answered on stream. And also, that's the only way to win our giveaway today. We've got a bunch of things to give away, including KSHMR Chain, and you have to be active in Plugin Boutique's YouTube chat for this live stream to win. But other than that, I'll let you go ahead and jump into your presentation.
Yeah, for sure. So the first one that I have pulled up is a project that's already using KSHMR Chain quite a bit. And after that, I'll go into a project that is basically a naked recording and try to take it from scratch of how I would handle the vocals from raw to the final product. So this is my song, One More Round. And how's the volume right now? Should I turn it up a bit?
It's actually pretty quiet, that part. Nice.
We go down to this God-forsaken town. We come together when the lights go down. Always up for another round. We come together when the lights go down.
So
I'd
this was
actually, if you
Yeah.
can roll back on the gain just a little bit. there.
Okay, sure. Sorry. I can't tell because I've got my own. Yeah, let me see what we're doing into the limiter here. They give me a better idea how much.
I'd
Yeah,
say
we're okay on the
that's about
limit.
good.
That's about good. Okay. So yeah, so this one's already developed. I've gone through the steps of I have a leader here, and I just do it on the first track. And the reason I do it on a track as opposed to, a track with a vocal on it, as opposed to just like putting it up here, which you totally could do on a blank track, is I like to see how the compressors and everything are reacting. And I should press play.
Down to this God-forsaken town. We come together when
And then we
the
can see I've got a little
lights
Pro
go
Q
down.
and some RVox. And, one thing I like to do sometimes is put quite a bit of compression, so we could even go more extreme, and then just run it in parallel. So I introduce the dry signal a little bit and go like that. And one of the coolest parts of KSHMR Chain is you can actually see the RMS difference between the signal entering and leaving the plugin.
Down to this God-forsaken town.
So if you want to do proper gain staging, you can just try to make sure it stays around 0. And if you're going to gain stage with the dry wet, you just kind of adjust them until you're getting the compression you want, but you're still around 0. So that way, if you turn off and on the plugin, you can get a more transparent sense of what the plugin is doing as opposed to it just sounding louder. And why I add 2 EQs, I don't know. I know there's no difference. I've literally tested if it sounds the same. I think Pro Q and Equality sound the same, but for some reason, it's like a habit. I believe Equality adds some nice sizzle, and it's probably bullshit. But anyway, here is a de-esser at the end because I'm adding so much highs, and if you don't add that de-esser, you're going to see the sibilances really pop up, especially when you're doing those notches I'm doing. So anyway, that's our leader. And I started out by putting a follower on every other track, and it's just so nice. They all have it. Each and every one is going to receive the same compression and the same EQ and everything, which is great in my book because it's all the same vocalist, it's all the same microphone. And if I were to bypass,
We go down to this God-forsaken town. We come together when the lights go down. Always up for another round. We come together.
and a question that comes up a lot is why couldn't you just do this on the bus, right? Like, why couldn't you just put it up there? And there's definitely reasons for that. There are things that I think you could get away with doing on the bus. Like, if you just compressed all of these, then when they all get loud and the sum signal is louder, then yes, the compressor is going to push it down in the way that you want. But if there are vocals that kind of pop up in spaces like this vocal in particular, the low octave, you see that it's getting kind of quieter here when these ones are louder. Now, the compressor, if you just put it on the group, it's not really going to react and help you out with that low vocal maintaining its volume because to the compressor on a group, it looks like the signal is about the same anyway. But the low octave is getting lost there, and by putting the compressor on the individual track, it's going to be bumped up and you're going to see a more even signal throughout this low octave. And that's just a natural thing with singers. On different takes, different notes are going to be louder or less loud. And especially with the low octave, some notes might get too low and you see a big volume drop. So with compression, I think this is really helpful. With tuning, it is a necessity. You absolutely have to put tuning on each individual track. Just for fun, if you guys want to put auto-tune on a group, be my guest. It'll sound probably ridiculous. De-essing is another one, right? Like de-essing, you really don't want to get a ton of reduction that's put on the whole group if there's only a few bad actors that are contributing to the S sound. You don't want your whole group to suddenly be ducked just because there's a few bad actors that are creating that sibilance. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the comments that I've gotten about how is this different than a bus, not to sound condescending, but it might be a lack of understanding of signal flow, about how a bus is really might as well be, a big render of all the different vocal tracks. It's like one big thick render that you're applying effects to, as opposed to applying effects to each individual track.
We got some questions that might be good to just get out of the way here in the beginning. One is the inevitable with any of these streams that I do with plugin manufacturers is the CPU question.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what's happening with the CPU? When you load it in the leader, is it somehow using that on that CPU with inside the follower, or is it a duplication of the plugin, and how does that affect CPU performance?
It's a duplicate of the plugin, meaning that if you do make a leader and a follower, you send the leader to the follower, you're going to get twice as many plugins, and there's no way around that, because at the heart of what we want to do is to apply those effects independently on a new track, which means that you're going to need twice as many effects. Now, one thing down the road that we could look at is, something that my friends who do composing that need to deal with really heavy CPU usage, they've told me about, I think it's Vienna Ensemble and some other ways that they're able to route the CPU using the cores more efficiently on your computer than Ableton would. And down the road, I would love to look at that, because now that we're sort of, handling the plugins on our own, maybe we could find ways to do different routing to the different cores in a more efficient way than Ableton would. But right now, you could literally look at it as you're duplicating plugins. And unfortunately, I don't think you could ever get around that. It would be like having your cake and eating it too,
It's just a question that comes up in all of these.
Of course. Yeah.
Another good question here from Crafted Music is, do we see any changes in latency when we're adding leader and followers to different channels?
So that's, through our development process, that was a big issue, figuring out the latency that these different plugins introduce, some of them more than others, and compensating properly. And now I think we do a really good job. In all the projects that I've used it on, I've not experienced any latency. Sometimes if I'm working a long time in a project, some latency will pop up, and I usually just restart the project, and that seems to solve it. Now, with UAD plugins, they're a real beast. They can introduce a lot of latency, which is ironic because the whole point of UAD is to have zero latency, right? Because you're using you're putting the weight of the CPU usage on the cards or whatever they call that they come with. For us, it's definitely been a challenge, and it's something that in updates we're probably constantly going to be trying to perfect when using the UAD plugins. But in my experience, everything except for those seems to be working just perfectly.
Good news.
For me. But if anybody out there has problems, please tell us, because, this is a new and, dare I say, it's kind of like a radical concept, and it's it will be finicky. This is the very first version we're putting out, and we really want you guys to tell us if problems arise so we can solve them.
Where would be the best place for someone to reach out and give any sort of feedback like that?
That's I figure that people will contact just Plugin Boutique where they bought it, but that's actually a really great point. And I wish I could just give my email out right now. But
I could give him your cell number if you want.
Yeah, I'll give him my cell phone number, maybe my social security if that would help.
Well, in the meantime, if people want to email support@pluginboutique.com, that might be
okay.
Yeah.
Plugin Boutique. And you can even message me on Twitter. And people have messaged me on Instagram so far. There's actually a guy who told me about a situation that KSHMR Chain really helped him with, which I didn't even think about, which is people doing surround sound. And 5.1, there was no way for him to have a mastering software, mastering chain that would accept 5.1, because I think he was using Ozone or T-Rax or something, and by using the leader and the follower, he was able to put it on all 5 channels, and the sub, which is the 0.1, I guess,
wow.
which is really cool. And he hit me up on Instagram about that, and we've been talking on Instagram. So if you guys want to, the only problem with Instagram is sometimes people hide my messages. But if you, Instagram does, you get these hidden requests. But if you guys message me on Twitter or Instagram, I promise I'll do my best to see it, and I'm keeping a record of everything you guys say.
Nice. A couple more questions that I think we could just bat out of the way here. One is from Gravy Shakes. Great name.
Yeah.
Does it give you wet-dry mix controls for each of the plugins in the chain? I believe you already went over that, but perhaps maybe you want to just run through that whole list of available parameters right there. It
does. So with this little expand button, you can adjust the input going into the plugin. You can adjust the dry and the wet. And if you wanted to just do the, turn that down. If you want to look at the wet as an output only, and you have the dry all the way down, then it's effectively an output. It's effectively an out. And then if you want to introduce some dry and wet, you can do that in parallel. And one thing that was brought up to me was, well, what about having a full parallel signal? And what that would mean is let's say we can't see my hands right now, but I'm taking my mouse and I'm kind of cutting this in half, and I'm saying, okay, well, what if the signal went to Pro Q3 separately and never hit this compressor and this compressor, and then it went on a separate signal flow to just the compressors? This has its own chain, and this has its own chain. And, one reason you might want to do that is splitting the bands, right? So you might have something that splits the low frequencies. You have some effects over here. Something that splits the high frequencies goes over here. And I think in an update, we're definitely going to consider that. I really like the simplicity of this now. There's other plugin chain creators, like I think they're called Blue Cats or something.
Yeah, Blue
They
Cat.
they have a really great plugin chain maker with all kinds of routing but it's quite dense, and it's quite scientific, at least at a first glance. And it was very important to me that this one was kind of simple, and our target audience be, I guess, less dense issues that we're trying to solve. But if we can offer that as an advanced mode that you open up without sacrificing the simplicity, that's something I absolutely want to do moving forward, is give you that full, not dry wet. I would say it's more of a parallel situation that we love to offer. But dry wet is available already in this version, and you can see it here. And again, if you missed it, this shows you the RMS difference from the signal coming into the signal leaving the plugin, which is a great tool for making sure that as you do your dry and wet, if you want to gain stage properly, you can make sure it stays around 0. And that lets you know that the total volume is not changed much. So hopefully that helps and answers the question.
That's a great feature, that the RMS setting there. I got another question here, and this is actually one that I thought of as well, and that's from Amish405. Is, can you, once you've loaded plugins into the leader, which are then duplicated in the follower, can you then go into that follower and make changes to that plugin to give sort of variations? What I imagine is one of the things that I find really strong is the ability to do that. That is a possibility, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely a possibility. So what you want to do is you want to go into your follower, and you just click this button called unlink. And if you notice, you see how the dry wet here was grayed out? That's letting you know that it's still linked. And then once you unlinked, that's available. Any changes to the plugin itself are available. So that's really easy to do. And if you say, that wasn't such a great idea, you just link it again, and you're just back to being linked.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then there's another question, which is, can you save your chains? And I'm sure this was somewhere in your
Yes.
presentation, but if you
You
want to.
can absolutely save your chains, and you just go there to save preset. And this is a really great way to save not just the setting of one plugin, but you have your whole 5 plugins that are instantly recalled to the settings that you wanted. And also, if you're using macros, those will be saved too. So that's just right there is where you can save that preset. Now, it just came to my attention. Yeah, if you're on a follower, you can't do that. And if that's something that people want, we can make that happen too.
I'm sorry, you can't do what now?
If you're on a follower,
Yeah.
and you make some adjustments, there isn't a way to save the preset there right now. And that just occurred to me, and maybe that would be useful to people because maybe this follower ends up being the winner and you want to save that one. So I'll just make a note of that.
That's why we do these streams.
Yeah. Yeah.
While he's making the note, just everybody that's just tuning in, no matter where you're watching from, if you want to ask your questions to KSHMR, come over to the Plugin Boutique YouTube channel, and you can ask them at Plugin Boutique with your questions. We'll try to get them answered on stream. And, of course, that's where you can enter to win. To enter to win the plugins we're giving away today, all you need to do is to be active and positive in the chat.
Yes. And if you guys have any more suggestions, keep them coming because, by no means do I think it's a perfect plugin yet. I think I just think that it's the potential is massive, and I think if we slowly, like Melodyne for me was definitely not perfect on the first one, but ever since the first Melodyne, I was like sold because I knew this was solving something so important. And this is probably maybe not important as Melodyne, but I do think this can solve something really important for people, especially working with vocals.
So,
and I have another use case actually that I wanted to show. But go ahead if you have a question.
I have a question. And as you're a producer who, it's almost exclusively you work with vocalists on your tracks, which I love. Obviously, vocal processing is a key part of your production workflow. Why does one go for Melodyne over Autotune and vice versa?
Well, I don't want to throw any shade. But,
no. Let's keep it completely above the board. I think they both have, use cases, and I'm just wondering what you find your use cases are.
So let me be fair to Autotune. I know that there is like an editing system for notes, right? To I think record in and then to edit the notes, similarly to Melodyne. But Melodyne, I've always looked at as sort of the piano roll for your vocal. You can look at it as if it's an instrument, and oftentimes I will even duplicate. So I'll have a singer do a lead vocal and then do a few takes in unison, doubles, right? So same notes. And then I will, in Melodyne, create harmonies just by dragging it around. And I have the same intuition for it as I would drawing a melody and drawing chord harmonies. And it's just so easy, and it's easy to also edit, let's say, a harmony. Here, I can, if this is important to you, I can pull it up and can even show you here how I would do it, right? So I'm going to load up one Melodyne here and one Melodyne here, and I'm just going to hit record on both of these, right, and take it through.
We go down to this God-forsaken town. We come together when the lights go down.
So just take that little piece, and I did it after my, chain, after KSHMR Chain, which normally is not what I would want to do. But let's just focus on these two guys here. Oops. And so what I've done right there is, not that this is a Melodyne stream, but I've taken this top vocal, and I'm going to make this the harmony. And all the while, I'm looking at the other vocal in gray. So I'm able to see what notes it's doing and how they're going to relate. And then sometimes where Melodyne makes bends, I'll just do some cuts here like this. And then I know that we're in the key of E minor. So let's think about what some harmonies would be starting on the B. We can even go here to key snap, and hopefully it knows that it's in E minor. It does know that it's in E minor. So
We go down, we go down,
you know, and I'm all of a sudden making some really fun harmonies, right?
we go down to this guy. We go down to this, we go down to this God of, we go down to this God of forsaken.
You know, and you just, I don't know if you can do that in Auto-Tune, but I do that all day in Melodyne. And then also, by the way, Auto-Tune has really, it's amazing when you don't want to get in the weeds with perfecting every note. You say, hey, this singer did pretty much a great take. You can just put a little Auto-Tune to bring them closer to the center. And then sometimes I'll do Melodyne and then add a little Auto-Tune afterwards, because it has some effect of just kind of like locking things to notes a little more, which is, again, maybe it's like how I use two equalizers. It doesn't make any sense, but but I do it. And then of course some people just actually want the auto-tune effect. Like some rappers want that auto-tune effect, so that's especially useful for auto-tune. So that is the auto-tune versus Melodyne. I think they both have their place, absolutely. And one thing that's really overlooked with auto-tune, or rather Antares, is their harmony engine. And if you guys have not used that, I'm not going to get into it now, but it's super useful. Also super useful from Antares is this plugin called Duo, which makes a really believable double of a vocal. So if you need it to be wide, you need a double, but you didn't record it, it does a really believable double. It's worth checking out. It's called Duo.
All available on Plugin Boutique, I believe. So,
my Plugin Boutique.
One last question before you can continue on, if you don't mind. And this is a good question. Are there limits to how many A, plugins can be in a chain, and B, how many receivers you can have in a project?
There aren't limits as far as I've encountered. It might just be the limit of your CPU that you have to contend with.
Right.
Yeah, I have run probably a project with like 50 or so instances, and kind of just, if you imagine that each instance is carrying like 4 or 5 plugins with it, you know, it does start to get a little tough on the CPU, but yeah, I think that's just kind of inevitable.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll let you go ahead and continue on with the rest of your presentation, and I will bother you again in a little bit with more questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So just to kind of showcase the differences of putting it on a group versus individual tracks, because this is something that we've run into. It's a question I run into a lot, right? How is this different than just putting it on individual tracks? So I want to show some examples of that. Why it's different. Distortion is a big one. As you guys might know, distortion can sound really good on monophonic audio. That means just one note. And if you introduce harmonies, then the distortion can start reacting in a really ugly way. Or with the power chords, sometimes that sounds good on distortion because you're using a perfect fifth, right? A first and a perfect fifth. But then anything in between, even like a third, minor third, it starts to get a bit ugly. And the same kind of applies to drums. If you had some drums where the kick is really powerful and you put distortion on the whole group, you're going to notice that everything else is sort of killed by the kick or whatever the most powerful thing is. Now, I hope Ableton's not going to be mean today. I run the beta, and sometimes it's just been kind of.
I think I noticed that before. The pinwheel of death is here.
Yeah, it seems like it's been just going on a little too long now. Yeah, but
Control Alt
Yeah.
Delete. Oh no, you're on a Mac. I don't know how to do
Yeah,
Control Alt
I'm
Delete
on
on
Mac. I might have to just. Let's just go back into it.
Well, while he's doing that, for everybody watching on anywhere outside of the Plugin Boutique YouTube channel, make sure to come through and ask your questions for Kashmir on our channel, and also you'll be entered automatically to win as long as you're active and positive in the chat. And boom, Ableton is back open. Did you see Live just released a mobile version for idea generation?
Whoa, really?
Yeah, the news broke today, I'm pretty sure, maybe last night, but there's now an iOS version.
That's awesome. I'll just do this guitar one first then, just in case. That's cool. I've actually seen some really cool apps for mobile for beat creation that I was like kind of surprised how good they were.
So your template there, you've got sidechain, 2 sidechains, it looks like. What?
Yeah. I have 2 side chains. One is an actual audible like click sound if I want to run that into a compressor. And then the other one is MIDI, so that will get fed into like an LFO tool or something. I find the LFO tool, especially if you're running a lot of plugins into it, it can get off time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I like to key it with. So this is an example of guitar. So I started out with using this guitar instrument, which I really like. The Ample Sound guys make really good guitar emulations. And let's just bypass for starters. And this is what we got. Turn off the fuzz too. So if you've recorded multiple drum tracks, one thing that you might want to do is see what a different amp would sound like on all of them, and see like, well, what if I played it into this amp or this, this stomp box kind of configuration. And you can do that super easily by taking, in this case, I'm just using the GTR tool rack from Waves, which doesn't want to open right now. I think Ableton is still being, it's like loading or something. All right. Why can't I open this? All right. Anyway. And can I, okay. So by just putting this on and syncing. Oh, it was bypassed. Okay, my bad. That was my bad. All right, so guitar tool rack, you can just play through different settings and then see what it would sound like. Like I could go down here and just and sync it. Now, one important thing to note about the chain is we're able to automatically sync changes that are read by your DAW as automation. So like if you were to change a compressor setting or a volume setting, most settings are read as automation by Ableton or whatever your DAW is, but not all are. Like adding a completely new effect here, like if I were to delete the distortion or delete the comp or add the comp, these are things that Ableton doesn't read as automation, and therefore we're not able to read it as a change. And the way around that is to just hit the sync button. And the sync button is like a failsafe that makes sure that all of the followers duplicate exactly what's going on the leader. Does that make sense? Or is that kind of, is that fuzzy?
It makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Okay.
I guess we'll wait and see if there's any questions about it that come up.
Yeah. So I've changed the preset. Sorry. Let me put. Sorry.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
Was that all of the pedals going at once?
Yeah. Now that is pretty extreme, so I'm just going to go back to the setting that I liked, which was this custom one that I made down here, and I'll just hit sync. And now, and just on this top track, I wanted this extra fuzz on it. So that's a cool thing about KSHMR Chain is you can just put all the effects you know will be shared into the leader. And then if you want any other effects that are only on a specific track, you could just put that after or before like this. And now we've got the setting I like. And just to show you guys how that is different than putting it on the group, I've got the same preset loaded up here. And you can hear, this is what it sounds like if you just put on a group. As opposed to. So in this case, the amp and all the different effects that are going on in the guitar tool rack are being applied to each individual one. So the compression is being only applied to this guy for his track, and this guy, and this guy himself. And that allows the compressor to nicely allow the plucks of this sound to come in, because it's not looking at all the other tracks when it's doing its compression, when it's doing its squashing. But if you were to just put it on the group, now it's looking at the whole signal of all three tracks playing and applying compression to that, applying distortion to that. And so you lose all the dynamics of each of the individual layers. As opposed to, you're able to hear the fullness of each layer when you apply the amp and the effects to each individual layer.
I mean, that's night and day, man. It's 100%.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, good. That's night and day. Okay, good. Yeah. That when you're dealing with distortion, you just run into a lot of problems if you try to run a lot of different tones and instruments through the same distortion. It usually doesn't give you that like beefy sound you want. It just becomes a wash. It becomes a mess, you know. Any other questions from the chat before I move on?
Yeah. Just a kind of random one. Someone's wondering. Jordan Keats is wondering, what's your favorite plugin? If you had to pick one to be stranded on an island with.
My favorite plugin. Well, you know, I'd want to make like sounds. So you need an instrument to do that. So I guess it kind of rules out effect plugins, unfortunately. So then I'd probably also go for a synthesizer, or, you know, Contact is so nice because it does kind of.
That's a cheat, though. That's a cheat.
But yeah,
you can't say Contact.
I know it's because it has everything, right? Like, I mean, Omnisphere is like an ocean of sounds, some good, some bad, but I guess it's sort of in the same category of Contact. Okay, if there was one plugin that is like, maybe let's look at effects plugins first. I
love how seriously you're taking this. This is
yeah. Well, it's honestly, it's a messed up question. Like,
it really is. No, I mean, it's such a broad. I get into trouble with that when people ask me like, "What's your top 5 songs?" I'm like, you just can't. You need to be much more specific. Like, what's your favorite EQ? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It'd be like, what's your favorite note on a keyboard?
Yeah.
He'd be like, I don't know, E? Like E?
I got a question for you. So when you're producing, do you find yourself going for a particular instrument for a particular sound more than others? So, for example, if I'm looking for a really fat, character-rich bass, I always go for Serum. Just the way it sounds it's just beautiful for me. I'm wondering if other producers feel that, and particularly you, about any instrument and any sound in particular.
You know, because I'm a little bit older, if I want to make a sound like from scratch, I usually just open up Sylenth.
Oh
Because
wow.
at one point, Silent was like kind of
It.
like the apex. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
I remember.
and but Serum, especially when I was working on this library called Symphony with Seven Skies, I really dug into Serum, and we created a library that was trying to emulate like real acoustic instruments, and so the different modulation and working with velocity in Serum and how they give you a curve, uh, it just almost made anything possible. The randomization abilities, and of course the wavetables, right? The wavetables and the noise, right? So like the noise was a lifesaver when you were designing, a plucked instrument that really needed the acoustic pluck to make it believable, even if the sustain of it was really just a wavetable.
Have you
Um,
have you heard of Imagine by Expressive E?
no, I haven't.
All right, I'm gonna get you a copy. It uses
Yeah.
physical modeling technology, so like what you're saying, the purpose of the synth is to sound like it's an acoustic instrument, even though it's
Oh,
all digital. But it's amazing. You especially are gonna love it.
I am like such a fanboy of the Swam guys. You know what I'm talking about? They do modeling. Um, like,
Swam. I've never even heard of Swam.
oh my God.
I've been sleeping on Swam.
These guys are so next level. Check this out. So I don't know if it comes with reverb. You probably want a little bit of reverb. Um, and I have to pull my keyboard out because I believe I need to. This keyboard doesn't have. You need to use all the controllers. So I've actually set up a handy little CC controller like this. So you just see me do it. You use expression to put air, and then modulation. And of course, if you had I have one of these heavy duty weighted keyboards that unfortunately doesn't have all the knobs to be able to do this on the fly. But it just sounds really beautiful, man.
I
Like,
mean, that's you're saying that's
and then you can even do. You can even get really nice like glissando effects and just really cool. Sorry, what were you saying?
no. So this is physical modeling. It's not
Yeah.
actually like it's. I mean, that sounds incredible even over the stream.
Yeah, and this library is 5 MB.
Yes. Oh my
It's
gosh.
fucking insane, dude.
We need
Insane.
to reach out. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, doesn't that sound good?
That sounds amazing, dude.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. All right, so there's that. And by the way, they offer violin, cello, everything. Those guys are just the coolest and just sound so good. So yeah. And also, if you haven't made one of these, I really recommend it. You can get this free for Ableton. It's just it sorry, I can't think. It turns CC parameters into something you can adjust with an effect rack, and you can make a nice little rack like this. And when I'm doing like really expressive passages with violin or saxophone or something, it's so helpful for me to just have this here in the sequencer or the arrangement. I forget what Ableton calls it, to visually see it, because I'm just not a big fan of going in here and doing this
Yeah,
thing.
flipping through all
Looking out.
those, flipping all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to just look at it, and then you open it up here. I open up my mod, which is going to be my vibrato, my expression, which is going to be the air into the instrument, and I'm just seeing how all these things interact together, right? And that's just really, really nice to look at it that way.
Nice.
Yeah. So get out of that, and yeah, I guess the last thing I would show, it's probably going to take a little bit longer, but what I wanted to show was how I went from like a complete raw recording to something that sounds more like the finished one. Now, if you feel like we don't have enough time for this, I can skip it depending on the audience's interest in this.
I mean, we're golden to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see what you got. I also want to just remind you to bring up the. I don't know if you mentioned it in the beginning. The how the automatic sorting of plugins in the organization inside of the chain.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. So I'll just start. I've got the lead vocal here, and I'm going to show what the song is. But just so you guys know, when we add plugins, if you've installed KSHMR Chain, it should have automatically scanned for all your plugins. And we have manually gone through and assigned categories to all the plugins that we could think of. The reason we did this manually is because although there is metadata that comes with the plugins, we find it to be pretty disappointing. Like they'll get a category, for reverb that's special effects or modulation or something. We're like, dude, no one calls a reverb modulation or special effect. People call it a reverb. So we wanted to create a reverb category, a sidechain category, modulation, mastering category. And sometimes you'll find a plugin in more than one category because it's just that's what it is. It is more than one category. I'm trying to think of an example. Of course, now I can't think of an example, but and you can create your own categories, which is so nice. And also, if you want to add something real quick, you could just hit Pro Q and I think I messed up and I clicked on one of these things. Here, let me get out of dynamics. Let me go to all. Okay, so Pro Q, it's going to be the first thing that pops up. And you can even just hit enter and it will do the first option that pops up. You could just hit enter like that and it would be Pro Q2 in this case, which, come on, guys, it's 2022. We want Pro
What
Q3.
are we doing?
You know what it is. What are we doing? So Pro Q3. And yeah, so that's a really awesome part of KSHMR Chain is just the organization. I think it's nice to be able to organize plugins the way you want to. And if you want to go down here, you can just look at your VST, VST3, or AUs and just use those. One cool thing to note is if you load up the AU version of Chain or the VST3, it doesn't matter. All your plugins, regardless of their identity, I guess you'd say, VST, AU, they're all going to show up and be available to you regardless of the version of KSHMR Chain that you open. So that's cool.
So if you make a folder, it's just the drag and drop functionality from there. You essentially make a folder, search for what you want, and then drag and drop it right inside.
Yeah, exactly. So if I want to say that KSHMR Chain, let's just do a little inception. No, that won't work. It doesn't allow that. Okay. KSHMR Essentials, which is another great plugin that will here. I unclicked like a dummy. All right, wait. Oh, damn it! I keep messing up. Maybe it is a bug though. Like if I'm not able to. Oh, it's just doing it on the first click. All right, I got it. Oh, that's a new plugin. I can't tell you guys about that one.
Oh,
yet.
whoa! Clip it.
Yeah, you can hard it right now, but that is weird that I'm not able to drag it into. Yeah, okay, that's a bug. That's just straight up a bug.
So how do you make a new category then? Let's figure this out.
How do you make a category? Yeah, make a category, and I'll just be like, new cool category. All right.
Nice.
And it's there, but then, so we're not. Yeah, it's just not like recognizing the drag, at least for me.
If you go into new cool category, write it. I mean, you can write it down.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you should be able to drag it. So that's just a flop. Dragging to categories doesn't. Which is so weird because, like, I did it. Like I did it when we were making the promo material for it, and something must have happened along the way that the first click just kind of goes. Anyway, we're gonna fix that. We'll put out an update. We'll fix that.
Nice.
And all right, so taking it from here, I've got this song. This song's called "Do Bad Well," and this is what it's supposed to sound like. This is the finished version.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Yeah, my daddy taught me well.
Is that volume okay?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay, cool. And now here's what it sounds like when you just record it before you didn't do anything.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are.
So so it sounds pretty dry, pretty dry, and drier than a nun, as they say. And got male down here. I'm just gonna kind of mute the males for now, and we'll probably do a separate chain for all the male voices, and just focus on the female vocal. And I've already gone ahead and put a leader and on the lead, because that's what we're just going to use to try to perfect, the chain for her. And then on the followers, they've all been linked to the leader. So we've got, a ton of followers down here that are going to be doing this section. All right, so let's go ahead and just start thinking about what we want to be on the leader.
Can I jump in real quick?
All right, so, yeah.
Solo from Excite Audio, yeah? He has just let me know that the newest version of KSHMR Chain, the drag and drop bug, has been fixed already.
Oh, I might be using a slightly old version.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's
okay,
good news.
That's
good news.
Okay, that's good news. Yeah. I honestly, until like last week, I was still using the beta because I was just like, you know what I mean? I was just so used to using the beta. And so there's might be more issues in mine than for you guys. But that's awesome that it is fixed. All right, so let's start with ProQ. And we're just going to do the regular stuff. We're going to cut out some junk down here. I can never barely hear it, but I've heard that 30 dB as a slope is the most that you want to do, or you start getting some resonance, I guess, some phase stuff.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one.
Oftentimes, I'll actually do like a little bit of a boost around here, but then I kind of level it out with some dynamic EQ.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull it.
All right, now for starters, I think that's okay. I might just add a bunch of plugins that, I feel like I'm going to use. Like, I think maybe the 3A I'll do in parallel. Maybe add some RVox. I'm just going to do a lot of compression, guys, because believe it or not, even I don't know what I'm doing. I just kind of throw shit on there until it works. And we'll probably want de-esser. Let's just do that. And I've heard some people say that Waves plugins weren't showing up for them. And Waves plugins are kind of weird in that they come in like one shell. And there's actually like 50 plugins in a shell. It has been working for me, but if you guys are having trouble with the Wave stuff, just let me know. I'd be curious. All right, and we're just kind of going to loop this for a second.
Oh,
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Oh, my daddy taught
Maybe
me
the
well.
twig.
There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when
I'm
they
hearing
pull
like
your card, you'll know,
a delay in the
know
voice.
which one you are. Oh,
A delay in the voice?
Yeah, I'm hearing
That-
like, yeah.
That might be the stream. It could be my microphone.
That's probably what it is, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't hear any delay.
And
Sorry about that.
Solos also just let me know that the waves issue that you've just mentioned will be fixed in the next update.
Okay, amazing.
oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell.
Too much? We'll hear it in relation to the track.
Child, when they pull your oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some. Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven.
And then I have a little bit of reverb here that we're just gonna.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card.
Let's compare how we're doing with the.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in
I think that one's just a little louder also maybe. And here, let's turn the instrumental up a little bit.
oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull.
And I think that's pretty close, honestly, for now. And then we can look at these guys. And the cool thing is they're like already done. They like already sound so much better. And all we had to do was do this one. And they're pretty much there. Let's see if I did anything dumb along the way. Oh, I didn't really do anything with the de-esser. Okay.
Promise me, oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven.
So with the de-esser, what I generally like to do is look where I know it should be reacting and just make sure that it catches that. And I guess male ass, or sorry, female ass.
Devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know.
I'm not really hearing too much S that bother me.
There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are.
And I know everybody says, oh, trust your ear, trust your ear. And I do trust my ear, but I always like to look at the waveform to make sure I'm not getting rid of all the dynamics.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell.
So to me, that is, yeah, I think we've just thickened it up quite a bit and we haven't lost all the dynamics. Sometimes I can turn things into a brick and that's not good. And even maybe some of you guys out there would say I'm compressing too much and I wouldn't fault you for that. But I think this is good enough for the stream.
Pull your card, you'll know which one you promise me, child, when they pull your card.
In fact, I would actually even maybe, so the 3A, the reason that we do this, and you can even go crazier with something like the 76. I'll just show you guys what that looks like for fun. 76 from, yeah, it looks like this. Oops. And This you can go real crazy. Let's go real crazy and go to Bluey, and we're gonna do rock my vocal, right? And we're just gonna go. Can you do that crazy thing? No, you can't do it here. Okay, Alt, and we're just gonna put the attack pretty low and this pretty low, and we're going to feed this in. And what this does is it kind of creates like a little bit of a squashed bed that no matter, like, despite the dynamics, it will never fall below a certain volume. So like nothing can ever get too quiet. And we want the dry to honestly pretty much be what it was, and then put that like.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull.
And even that is sounding good without the Pro C. I mean, that's a lot of compressors, but yeah, that's good. And you know, you could even run some for the sound for this sound that we're doing. We could do some distortion, but I think if anything, that wouldn't be on these vocals. So that's the kind of thing that I would probably put on after the chain leader. I would say, okay, maybe we want some decapitator or something. And we could just see what that sounds like for this. Because it's kind of like an old-timey sounding song.
Well, there's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you be. Well, there's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are.
It just depends how old-timey you want it to sound and westerny you want it to sound. But that's a case where I would just put that on there. And some people, you know, like I talked to Dr. Luke, who was a super big inspiration for me. And back in my pop days, I used to work with him. And I was bugging him. I was like, you know, could you give me a testimonial for the plugin? And he really liked the plugin, but he said, well, what if I don't want to put all the same effects on different tracks? And I was like, well, dude, you just put the leader or the follower on you know, with the effects that you know are going to be shared by all the vocals, and then you put an extra effect at the end that is specific to only this track. So that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, my daddy taught me well. If you can't do good, better do bad well.
And already I think that sounds pretty good. I think these vocals, like if you look at just the waveform now, let's check it out. I think before we were getting a lot of up and downs. Oops, I had it on loop. And now we're just getting a much smoother, not really missing any, like it never gets too quiet at any point. And let's do like a real proper A and B. And you can see here, there's just a lot of like, and if we were to bypass, sorry, are you still with me? I've been on a monologue.
No, it's great. Well, I'm just letting you go, man. This is great.
Oh, thanks, man. You know, if we bypass, we can really see the difference of, especially in that section. It's like, and now, you know, I should be fair and turn the volume down a bit, but it never really feels like it disappears, you know?
So that bypass button right there actually bypasses all of the followers?
Yeah, that's right. That bypasses all the plugins in the chain.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's a real easy way to see, well, 75, get rid of this guy. I don't know what he's doing.
What's he doing?
I don't know. That's probably not true. I don't know how you get up to 7.
It's not active. It's not active. So
yeah, it's not active. So I think it must have tripped out. Yeah. Okay. He's back to normal. Just hit the sync. Sometimes I just hit the sync to be careful.
That doesn't seem like nothing. So.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's a matter of me having.
So promise me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Got it. So on the leader, it's only going to be telling you about the leader and the leader's discrepancies. So if you want to look at these RMS values, that makes sense. You're not going to be seeing them here.
Right.
But you could see them if you open up a follower. And that's really not perfect gain staging. You can see some stuff is spiking, but hey, we're streaming.
You're streaming.
It's
You
all
did it in
good.
like 3 minutes, dude. I don't think you have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I mean, we really only did it in one place, and then everything sounded fucking good, man. You know, it's like that. Yeah.
I got a question. So, obviously, you're working on a very kind of like a streamlined version of this song. Would you recommend having, because obviously you can have different followers and different leaders. You can have multiple followers in multiple groups, obviously. Would you recommend having on your lead vocal that might have a harmony or a backup, like one leader follower group or couple, and then on if you just got a harmony or a backup vocal group inside of it, and then have an additional one on those? So because you're not always going to want to just blanket do the same thing on everything.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And what you might, one way you could go about that also is you could think about the things you do want on both, like maybe the amount of compression would be the same, but now these background vocals are sounding a bit bright as opposed to in the back. Whenever you brighten something up, it tends to sound a bit more forward. So you might save that just for the lead vocal, and then have a separate leader that's like you apply. Sorry, so the compression would be shared on one leader, and then some additional things that brighten it up, you could put on another leader. Or another way to do that, if we want to just keep it simple, is we say, hey, we're going to call this lead vocal, and then we're going to save this as a preset, lead vocal, female, and then we just go here and we say, hey, we're going to actually make you turn a leader on here, and lead vocal female to start with, but we're actually going to say background vocal, and we get rid of this follower here. And now we make some decisions that are a little bit more specific, like maybe we even we turn down this a bit, and maybe we go a little bit easier on the compression, right? And then we would need to now link the rest of these guys to group B. And it is annoying. I know our whole premise is say goodbye to copy and paste. I mean, unfortunately, there's no way as of now to get around like just having to now change these. One dream of mine that I have is to within KSHMR Chain be able to look at an overview of all of the followers and leaders that you've assigned, and then you could kind of dump them in buckets from one place. Now, I think that's like kind of a version 2 dream. As the developers like to tell me.
Studio One or Pro Tools kind of already has that functionality, doesn't it? Where you can just highlight multiple channels and just drag and drop, I think, a plugin on one. It might be a limitation in Ableton Live, but I'm pretty sure you can do that in either Studio One or Pro Tools. The chat will correct me if I'm wrong.
So that's awesome if you could do that. That's amazing.
Another good question from the Plaid Hatter, which is another great name. What happens if you freeze a track? I'm guessing that it just treats it like normal.
Yeah, it just treats it like normal. Now, one thing you want to be aware of is if you freeze your leader, the followers are going to get confused, right? Yeah. They're going to be like, what just happened to my leader? But if you freeze a follower, there's nothing weird. It's just exactly what you'd expect. But yeah, if you vacate the leader spot, that does put you in kind of a weird position, where you don't have a leader, I might have.
Yeah, did you purposely confuse your computer for the stream?
Yeah, I purposely did this for the stream. I froze and then unfroze, and that gives me problems sometimes. And this is kind of like something I've run into, not specifically with Cashmere Chain, but like just in general with freezing and unfreezing things. I might have to load it up again, which sucks because I didn't save like a dumbass. Oh, but I did save my preset. Oh, so yeah, no, it's going to be easy.
And that's the benefit of saving presets with Cashmere Chain.
Yeah, we saved ourselves there. That was nice. And then so you could do that on the background vocals, and then you could also do that on the male vocal. And that's what I was going to do next, because obviously like the roll off on the low end is going to be different for a male vocal, especially in this track because the male vocal is really bassy. And just with a different vocalist in general, you want to have a different chain. But all right, coming back to life. You guys can have a nice little look at my desktop, see if anything.
Anything?
Yeah. Oh, it went bad on me again. All right, here. I'll just
send that report. They need to figure this out.
Yeah, they need to figure this out because it
Just
couldn't be our fault.
Stop working on iOS apps and figure out 11 point whatever it is.
I should just have gone back to the regular version for the stream, but I could be blaming them, and it's just could be a Cashmere Chain thing too. I don't want to sound like we're perfect or anything. But that was weird. I mean, freezing and unfreezing something, I've done that a million times, and that doesn't usually cause any issues.
Well, I think you froze and flattened, and then try to go back 2 steps, which is a whole different thing than freezing and then unfreezing.
Right. All right. So we loaded up the lead vocal again, and I mean, look how quick that was. We just loaded a ton of plugins into a ton of tracks. And it happened so fast. I mean, I don't know. Just a big time saver in my book.
Taught me well, there's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child.
So I could do the male vocals, but I think you get it. Like, I would just do a different chain. I would probably load up the same chain and then start adjusting it to match with the male vocals. But let's just turn those off for a second and compare it to... Oh, and you need to turn them off. We could just compare it to the track.
So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Yeah, my daddy taught me. Yeah, my daddy taught.
And I think if I'm listening to the mix correctly, we probably just widen these a little bit on the final, and maybe even on the group we put like a little bit of a should I put any reverb on there? No, we should probably put some reverb. I'm just gonna copy over the same reverb in the sake of just time and
Yeah, my daddy taught me well.
I think it's just mix and master. The beat sounds a little bit better also. But I think in terms of the vocal, when you look at where we came from, it was a big difference. We could just A and B one last time. This is without it.
Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child, when they pull your card, you'll know which one you are. Yeah, my daddy taught. Oh, my daddy taught me well. There's some devils in heaven and some angels in hell. So promise me, child.
And I can't take credit for it sounding better. We just used a bunch of plugins that everybody knows and loves. But I think we can take credit for how easy it was to do it in one place and for everything else to sound just the way we want it within the matter of seconds, right?
100%. I think one last thing to maybe touch on is, now that you've done all this work and you want to send those stems to me to do the remix, the benefit of Cashmere Chain in that process, I think, is another thing we should touch on quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you wanted to send somebody every one of these tracks, right, to do a mix with, if you had just put all these effects on the group, you would be stuck copying and pasting those effects to each individual track if you want the person to receive it, each layer with those effects on it, right? So that's the nice thing, is that if we were to bounce out each and every one, the lead and this layer and this layer and this layer, they'll all have the same effects when you export to stems, as opposed to putting it on a group, which is another big difference, right? Like if you I mean, you either get it or you don't, right? Like you bounce individual layers, they're not going to have the group of effects unless you render in this super slow way. I think Ableton allows you to, where you say render with each group effects, and then it does that. It's quite slow, but yeah, that's it, man.
Well, it was a phenomenal presentation. It's a phenomenal plugin. One last question from Brandon K was, do you know how long it took, or obviously you would, how long it took to develop this from front to back?
Yeah, it took over a year, I would say. And, just being able to safely encapsulate all these different plugins for them to work well was tough. It was a big challenge. I think we've just about nailed it. But it's probably, the development process is probably going to be, go on and on, especially as new plugins get developed. I'm sure there'll be new challenges to make it run smooth with all of them. But, we made it this far, so we're not going to stop now.
You got more plugins coming up with Excite Audio?
I think we will. Yeah, ideas are getting thrown around, so I think it is definitely going to happen. The Excite guys are so easy to work with. They have such a good eye for simplifying. Like our original design, they simplified it, made it so much better, and I think they really appreciate quality and new ideas with their plugins, and I think that's evidenced by the plugins they've already put out, like Expanse. I'm already using all the time in my projects, and just a selfless self-promotion. If any of you guys have not gotten the new Sounds of Kashmir 4, it's out now. And that's another one that took years and years to make. But as far as the samples that you hear in all the songs that I'm using, all of them come from Sounds of Kashmir 4. And it's a really comprehensive library of sounds. And I actually have a new sound pack coming out with my friend Zafrir, who's this crazy Israeli guy. Like, you could pick up any instrument in a room full of 30 instruments and play them. And we just put together this sound pack, and that's about to come out. So I'm really excited about that. That one's called Zafrir's World Instruments. And you can just Google, or you can find all that stuff on dharmaworldwide.com, which is my site. And you can look at Excite and Dharma as, like, we've become really good friends over the last year or so.
Wonderful to hear. Just to let you know, we ran a poll in the chat here on the channel about Melodyne versus Autotune, and the results are in. Are you curious on who won?
Yeah, I'm very curious. Yeah,
we had 160 votes, and it was 74% Melodyne, 25 to Autotune.
Yeah,
I think Melodyne's just for me. I think Melodyne's a bit more transparent, and that's usually what I'm looking for in vocal correction. Whereas Autotune, well, it can be if you spend enough time with it. It's more like a creative effect, as you said. A lot of the hip hop scene, reggaeton, especially. Yeah. It just sounds great. So it depends. It absolutely depends on what your goals are. But I think Melodyne is pretty. And
sweet. Also, Autotune, if you're working pretty quickly with somebody, Melodyne takes a lot longer, right? Like Autotune, you kind of can just set it and forget it, and it gets the job done in most cases where someone's singing, they're hitting just about every note. Autotune can be a huge time saver, but when you want to get in the weeds, it's Melodyne all day, I think. Yeah.
Well, I've got good news. We're actually going to give away a copy of Autotune Pro right now.
Sweet. Sweet.
So we actually have 2 bundles to give away for people who are on the Plugin Boutique YouTube channel. And the first bundle is Autotune Pro, Stereo Savage from Plugin Boutique, which just came out last week. It's a stereo tool. It's absolutely phenomenal. Lots of great updates there. And Excite Audio's Lifeline bundle, which is console and Expanse, and then also KSHMR Chain. So a bunch of plugins. And then the second bundle is Stereo Savage, the Lifeline bundle, and KSHMR Chain. So I've got 10 random names here of people who are positive in the chat, and I need you to give me 2 numbers between 1 and 10, and those are who's going to win. The first one will be the second bundle, and then the second one will be the winner, just to make it more confusing.
Okay. I got to go with 7. That was my favorite Final Fantasy.
Okay.
And, man, I got to go with 6. I'm October 6th. This is my birthday, so.
Oh, I'm October 5th. Happy birthday.
Oh, shit. Happy belated birthday, man. Yeah. Cool.
Nice. Yes.
I was going to do 6-9, but just too obvious.
I mean, but you said it anyway, so you might as well just had gone for it. But I mean, I respect 6.
Yeah.
All right, so the winners. The winner of the runner-up bundle, which is Stereo Savage from Plugin Boutique, Lifeline bundle from Excite Audio, and the new KSHMR Chain, is Gravy Shakes. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations, Gravy Shakes. Yes.
Gravy Shakes.
And the winner of the massive bundle, including Autotune Pro, Stereo Savage from Plugin Boutique, the Lifeline bundle from Excite Audio, and KSHMR Chain, is Crafted Music. Congratulations. I'm just going to hit a little...
Cool.
Yeah, we got a clap sound effect happening right now. So, to claim your prize, just go ahead and email support at Plugin Boutique with just a message about what you won, where you won it, and a screenshot of you logged into your YouTube account, and we'll get you sorted with all of those great goodies. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thank you, KSHMR, for coming through and giving us a very in-depth, close look at your brand new plugin with Excite Audio. It's a great plugin. Everybody should have it in their collection. Any serious music producers, it's definitely something that's going to save you a bunch of time. And as all of us know, that is what it's all about in the end, is saving that precious, precious time so you can focus on being creative rather than doing copying and pasting and duplicating and all of this stuff that's just unnecessary now that KSHMR Chain is in the world. So thanks again, sir, for coming through.
Yeah.
Let's do it again next time you've got a new plugin out.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's been really fun talking to you. It's been a great interview, and it's going to be online, right? Because I didn't get to see any of the chat or anything, but
we broadcasted to a lot of different places, but it will be archived on the Plugin Boutique channel. I'm pretty sure it'll be archived on your YouTube channel as well. We haven't been monitoring that chat. I hope someone from your team was, but the chatter is also archived, so you can watch back in real time and see what people were saying throughout.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. Well, with that, I'll let you go. I know you got a full day ahead of you, and thanks again for coming through. And congratulations. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck with the new plugin.
Thanks so much, man. I'll see you guys next time.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.